whatever level you're coming into this at, whether it's just to grow some for your small section or if it's a big, large scale project. Hopefully some info today will be good for you and you can take some info away. This is sort of pre-human, how much of our landscape had forest on it. This is sort of, when was that? Pre-European, yeah, and this was sort of roughly now. So lots of our landscapes changed, and that's a really important thing to know when you're collecting seed, that where you collect seed is from areas that are sort of remnant to where you live. So if you're lucky enough to live up Te Hore, there's still a lot of remnant vegetation, but it's usually back against the hill or up the ends of gullies, and there's actually not much lowland stuff. So we're lucky to have Pelorus Bridge. It's a real taonga, like to have those old age things there that are local. You've probably got some up your way, up the valleys, and as you get up there, but often it's pushed back into the corners. So figuring out where those remnant bits are really important for eco-sourcing, because those are the local varieties that have shown to grow well there, have been successful there. A thing to be aware of when you're collecting is to not just collect from anywhere, just to know the history of the plant. So some things that are common traps are, say, plantings on farms, maybe where you may not know the history. They may have ordered 10,000 trees from Taupo nursery and it's come down and all the cabbage trees are actually from up there, not from here. Or along roads, really, like the NZTA has done a big road alignment and they've done lots of planting, but they may have come from somewhere else. That's really common as well. So knowing the history of your trees is important. So it's really, especially for species like harakeke, for tikoko, our cabbage trees, manuka kanuka, those species that are real common in plantings, they're often been brought in. Pude is another one, our carrots. New Zealand's split into a whole lot of different ecological areas, and it's sort of based on different sort of landscape factors like biogeography and mountains and rainfall and things like that. So we've sort of split areas into areas that sort of characterize one area's ecology. And an example would be if I collected tōtara from right out the Sounds. It's quite a different environment to here in South Marlborough. It's like wetter, more rain. There's sort of, it's just a different landscape to here where we might only get 600 mils of rain. So those two genetic pools of tōtara have got a different whakapapa, like they're different and they're suited to their environment. So to bring one into here or to bring that one there would be sort of mixing it up a bit too much. In saying that, where you've got a really modified landscape like the Wairau Plains, all those species have gone. So we need to do our best to actually bring them back into the landscape. So sort of any podocarps back in here is also important. So it's sort of, I want you to be aware of both things, but not let it limit you planting back in a landscape like this, which is, it's important to just get them back, otherwise we'll never have them back in here again. And the other thing that's important about eco-sourcing is it maintains our national genetic variation. So, if we were to just plant Taupo cabbage trees across our whole landscape, it would sort of reduce the genetic variability and diversity across our country. So it's really important to keep our local suppliers eco-sourced as best we can. Just another note, I suppose, when you're going out to eco-source, it might be on your own land, might be on someone else's, just get permission. Yeah, sort of ask, and just, it might be a roadside or whatever, but just make sure, I suppose, that it's okay. So that depends what you do, but there's lots of different bits of gear that you might need. So I suppose firstly is, after permissions, you've got the species that you want to collect, you need to sort of go and collect stuff. So pretty much I use a range of things. I use buckets, I use heaps of sacks that I try and empty any other rogue seed out of. I use plastic bags a bit, I use paper bags, and depending on how long I'm storing the seed for, it's a lot about timing. So for a long time you sort of need to just observe trees that you're going to collect from to make sure that it's actually at the right stage to collect. So an example today, there's lots of examples like this. Aki's getting ready, and I suppose a good example is it's a wind-blown seed, and if you shake it, it might just release a few seeds. So that's actually good to go. It's really ripe. If it's not ripe, it's just a bit greener colour when you look at the seed, and it won't come off the tree very easily. Another example is for our berries, our karamu. So You know, you can sort of tell it's really, it's nice and ripe, and you can sort of taste stuff as well if you want. If stuff's a bit sweeter, the bird's going to eat it. Karamu's got a different strategy. It's sort of not quite as nice as all the others, but it lasts longer, so that'll last quite a long time through till late autumn, and it'll be sort of one of the last feet. Whereas stuff like kaikomako is really like a lollipop, and just as it gets ripe, it'll just get, the whole lot of it will just go. So different species, you need to figure out if you need to collect them straight away because they'll go otherwise, or if you've got a bit of time. And stuff like karamu, this is our mahoi, which is our, what they call whitewood. It's got the purple berries. Yeah, mahoi is pretty awesome at just sort of doing its own thing, eh? If you can get stuff in there, it'll come in. So usually I'm cruising around with a bit of a thing on, and this is quite good if you're just checking trees. I've got a marker pen in here, secateurs, usually, yeah, just a few random things. If you're looking at yeah, I suppose cutting off different stuff that you can't reach to, there's a few tools that we use. Like I use a massive big ladder for a lot of the time, and this one's awesome for stuff like tikaka, gathering the seed heads, and I suppose you're not going to kill the tree if you cut, you know, a whole flower head of seed berries off. So you can see the big white ripe berries on the cabbage trees down there coming out. Sort of want to get in there and just get that hook over and just take the whole head, and then you can strip the berries off, and it's not gonna kill the tree. So in saying that, most of the time, if you're just wanting a few, if you can sort of just be bringing the leaves off the tree onto like a big tarp or something, and put that at the bottom and shake it onto the tarp, and then you're going to get hundreds. But I got this one from Levin Sawmakers. You know, they do, Levin Sawmakers are good. They do forestry supplies, and this one's really good. It goes out to like goes out to about 6 meters. So you can. This is really good for kānuka. So yeah, kānuka, when it's ripe, it's really sort of takes a bit of practice to see when kānuka's ripe. So it's a bit hard here, but you can see there's actually a kānuka bush down there. If you can see it, you just get a red tinge at the top of the crown. So when you get that red tinge, you know that you've got a good sort of coning year, and that's when you get in there with that and just take those high coning branches off. Manuka is great. Like you can see the cones, you can just get them, snip them off, whatever. And most of the time throughout the whole year, you've got some cones on Manuka that have got seed in. You can just get heaps of cones, chuck them in, and let them pop in the bag, and they'll release the seed into your sack. I'll show you that soon. With Kānuka's quite different. So it ripens, and then it all just goes in about 2 weeks. So you've got to really be on it and keeping looking at it. And the way I usually collect Kānuka is just collect some every week for about a month or 6 weeks, and then you know that you eventually within that cycle you're going to get some ripe Kānuka. I use these a lot for when I'm doing the big collections for Te Hoere or for the council. This is a properly made seed net, but you can just use whatever you want. Like you might just have a tarp that you string up, or shade sails are quite good. These are shading around that you don't need. This has got like a funnel in it. So maybe if you come over, yeah, maybe. So this sort of, it gets strung up in the forest. What you do is you walk through the forest and you'll find I'm looking on the ground a lot. So especially when you're in a place like Puluas Bridge, you can't see what's happening up in the canopy. So you need to be sort of on the ground looking, and then tōtara and rimu, matai miro have male and female parent trees. So you basically need to look for the fruiting trees. You need to find where they are, and then look around on the ground to make sure there's plenty of fruit falling, and then you'll set your net up, and you'll come back and check it every sort of once a week or something. And if you come over, there's some in here. I just grabbed this net yesterday. So what you'd do is in here you can actually hear some of the seed going through this grate. there's a lot of leaf litter in here, but I'd be shuffling that out, and most of this at the top is leaf. But when I flip it over, you can see in here there's actually quite a lot of tōtara seed. It's that green seed, and so there's probably 200 or 300 tōtara seed in there. Yeah, it's a fruit as well, so it's got a fruit on it that birds eat. But when you're looking at, there's lots of different native tree books around. Some are better than others. Some are really big, small. I actually got this one a couple of years ago, and I'm sort of looking for different stuff in the books that I get now. This one by John Dawson and Rob Lucas, who've written plenty of books, has actually got it's got really good photos of the fruit of each species rather than just the tree, because some books haven't, but this one tends to. And so I was particularly impressed with these guys' book. So that's a good book. This was written quite a few years ago. It's by Laurie Metcalf. Stuff's evolved a bit since then, but what I'd point you to would be just read widely. So like there's the website, the New Zealand Plant Conservation website, which is really good. It's probably one of the best sort of botanical you have to pay a membership if you want to go to the next level of extra info and more photos, but even the public layer is quite good. So that's NZPCN. But on your phone, the apps, there's the Seek app. Yeah, I think it's called Seek. And that's you can pretty much take a photo of a plant and go query, and it should mostly get it. The things we'll look at today is processing dry seed, so stuff like ake, manuka, kanuka, pūrei, things like that. And I'll just give an example of manuka. It's berries, so we're going to talk about stuff like anything with fruit on, so kaikatea, tōtara, karamu, miro, matai, rimu, kahikatea, tikoka, anything with fruit. So we'll talk about how to process fruit. And the last one is sticky seed, so the pittosporums. We'll have a bit of a conversation about that. It's pretty tricky to get them going, but we'll talk about how to extract the seed. So yeah, first up, anything that's dry. So some things quite big, like you probably had some of these in your tarpaulin this morning. These are kōwhai seed. And if you're just doing a few, you consider roughly just sort of rough off the husk, and you're going to end up with the seeds, which are these yellow little seeds that pop out. And these seeds are really heavy. They're really, really hard. So they're designed to sort of last a long time in the environment and settle out into a nice area where they sort of slowly soften and germinate. These are ake, so the seeds within these little capsules, this is just, these wings are designed for them to float away with the wind, carry a little bit away from the parent tree so that their genetics are spread out a bit further. But again, in nature, these just sort of rot down until they end up with the seed, which is the little black. There's a little black seed here. You can hear it hit the. So just a tip on viability. Often when you drop seed and it hits really hard on a surface is a good way to test viability. Right now there's a little breeze blowing. So if the seed's not so good, it usually just floats away and the good seed drops straight down. So that's something to think about, especially with stuff like rock daisies or pūrei. There's a little breeze. Sometimes I just stand there and just drop it, and the good seed is there and the rest gets blown away. Often when trees are under stress, they will seed, especially in a dry year and stuff. So sometimes the seed might be looking awesome, but it might not be that good, might be non-viable or something. So the more parent trees you collect from, the better. Get around and collect from quite a few, so that you're not just getting one type. And that's good for eco-sourcing in general, because if our climate changes and we get a drier or wetter climate, then you've spread your risk a bit. You've got trees that might handle better conditions. It's like harakeke, that's why there's so many types. It's because they sort of survive different soils and stuff. Here's an example of just sussing out whether you've actually got the right manuka. So these are two types. These are manuka. They're both manuka. They look different, eh? Yeah, so this is a high UMF honey Manuka from the North Island. Really thin branching, less cones, but it's got high UMF factor honey. So huge areas were planted in this for different areas for honey. This is our local Manuka in the Sounds. It's just quite different, quite coarse. So this is what I've collected. I just brought that as an example, but it's something to be aware of if you're just collecting off the roadside. So if you're collecting Manuka, Kanuka, I'm trying to think what else, possibly stuff like random stuff like this, like faux, which is the seed in a capsule. I'd just collect all of that, get it in a sack, and I'd just leave it. This stuff's been here, hopefully we get some seed. So I'm going to leave that for maybe 10 days, a couple of weeks, just somewhere dry. I just leave it in my carport, and then all I'm going to do is get a container. You can come over if you want and have a look. I'll bring it here. So I'm just going to shake that. It's going to, heaps of stuff's going to come out, heaps of seed. Hit the leaf. Okay, so awesome. There's some seed there, and that's all popped out. That's nice fresh seed. Kanuka's got different age cones on it all the time, so it always has some old cones that have burst, some new cones that are growing, and some middle-aged cones, which are the ones with the ripe seed. But we want to get that down to sort of just seed if you're going to sow seed. So you're going to raid the baking department of your kitchen and grab some sieves. And first round, you probably need 2 containers like this. I find quite handy. So we've got heaps of seed coming out. So per gram, there's about 1,000. There's about 1,000 seeds per gram for Manuka. Yeah, and when you're planting, you probably want to. If someone was asking me how many you plant, how many survive. So Manuka's quite good at germinating mainly. Just dump that there. You might, of 1,000 seeds per gram, you might get 500 germinate, and then maybe another half of that again. So you're always sort of dividing by 2. There's still lots of leaf in there, so I'm going to try and do 2 sieves now. And then you're sort of trying to really get it fine. There's still heaps of leaf in there, see? So if you're doing a heap of seeds for your farm or whatever and wanting to grow thousands, it's important to get a lot of that leaf out. But if you're just doing it for yourself, then you can probably 6 or 7 grams of Manuka there. So that's still not clean. You can get more seed out of there. And then we'd probably store that for a little bit just until you're ready to sow, or just sow straight away if you're ready. Different, yeah. So you don't want to store seed for forever. You want, I suppose the general principle is fresh is best. Get the seed, process it, sow it. Some seed, like a lot of the podocarps, with sort of tortilla as the exception, it grows pretty well. But some need like a dormancy phase. So a lot of people put stuff like metal matai, things like that into a refrigerator for a while to break a dormancy period, and that's probably, you want to do your research on the type of seed you're trying to sow and try those different methods out for germinating the seed. Stuff like Hino might sow and then it might be 5 years until that germinates, so it's just like nothing happens and then it pops. But Manuka, you'll see it in like 5-6 weeks, you'll start to see it, or a few weeks you'll start to see it pop out. So everything's got a different thing, but yeah, generally fresh is best. And also when you collect the seed, in nature, if you like tawa out at Pelorus Bridge, you'll walk along now, there's fresh tawa berries on the ground. You would have seen. If you leave them for too long into autumn, they'll start getting attacked by just grubs and borers and stuff. So that's just nature, everything's just having a go. But it's sort of pretty good and viable now. It would have been getting knocked off by Kerudoo. They would have been feeding up in the canopy or wind, and it's pretty good. And again, it's just observing nature. Like when birds are feeding on seed, it's ready to go. Like it's ripe. So that's the seed trying to tell the bird to eat me, to go, and it's perfect timing. So observe nature, observe what's happening. Most native plant nurseries make their own seed raising mix. They make their own potting mix. If you buy it from Bunnings, you probably get quite poor results. So most nurseries have a mix of like river sand, manure, some potting mix, some aeration stuff. Yeah, they basically custom make they might put more nutrients in for certain types of species or less for others. You know, some of the South Marlborough barren scree slope stuff might just require quite rocky scree sort of stuff and not much nutrient, and something else on lowland soils might require nice moist, you know, stuff with some good stuff in it. And yeah, so we just wanted to talk a bit about berries and fruits. So you'd probably soak these a bit, get all the flesh off them, and just keep rubbing them every couple of days. And as you do, the flesh is going to come off and the seed will sink to the bottom. So you spend a bit of time every day getting your hands nice and gross. And especially with big stuff like those metal berries, what you're trying to do is, as you can see my hand there, all these little light bits of the seed coming out of those berries. So most of the seed will be in that bottom corner of the bucket down there, and you can almost feel it down there. Some of the non-viable seed at the moment is just floating to the surface, so you want a nice surface and plenty of water in your bucket. But as you tip it out, you'll start to see the seed sort of gathering in the bottom corner. Looking around secondhand stores and steel suppliers to get some nice mesh sizes that work for different types of seed that you're trying to grow. So the seed's starting to drop through this grate and the flesh is on top. Sort of one way of just separating the seed out, because you don't want to damage the seed too much. But like the sieve technique here before, that's really all we're doing here. It's just a different size. So for your fruits, you'd be getting the flesh off, and then you're sort of wanting to dry the seed a little bit. You might put some newspaper down in a tray like this. And you might just dry the seed for a little bit. And it's really just to prevent sort of too much sort of rot happening. And I suppose disregard all the berries that are in here, but it's really these fruits, these seeds that we're trying to dry out. And then you're sort of letting that just to air dry, and then you'd be ready to sow it. My advice would be to try different methods. If you're not getting something to germinate, try a different potting mix, or try a different parent tree, or try a different watering regime, or try it under some more shade instead of full sun, or, you know, just keep trying different things, and then eventually you'll get it. You'll figure out how to grow a certain type of species.